incredibly intelligent. So he was always excelled in school, loved schoolwork. He could just read something and retain it, get all A's. He loved music, skateboarding, books, family, guitar player. He has a YouTube channel with about 20 songs. Some are cover songs, some are ones he wrote.
Waking up in the morning, I gotta make my amends. I know how it began, but I still don't know how it ends. She said, would it be alright if you stayed with me tonight? But I still don't know how it feels to feel alright.
So did great all through school. He was always at the top of his class. He did band. They went to state his senior year. And then he went to college. So it was actually his high school graduation, and these are things I found out because his memoir is in his phone. He wrote his memoirs because he wanted to be a writer someday also. First time he tried opioid pills was at his high school graduation when a cousin had given him some. I did not know that until getting into his phone after he passed. Then he went to Texas State for college, and there he tried heroin for the first time with his cousin as well. He overdosed in 2012, and since he had been caught with pills one other time, he was revived in the emergency room with Narcan. He was in the ICU, and he ended up having to go to like a 6-month state-run rehab down in San Antonio because Texas State was down there and he had gotten caught with the pills in Bexar County. So he did the 6 months, came out, came home, did really well, completed his probation, went back to school, got his bachelor's degree, then he got his master's degree. Then he came back to live with me in 2018 after he had gotten his master's to see what kind of job he was going to get. Then he started working at the University of Texas, Arlington, and then 2020 hit. COVID. Everything shut down. He wasn't able to go on dates, be with friends. It was very distressing, depressing. And he had started using, I don't know what he was using in 2020, but we had a family meeting and we all confronted him. That was like September of 2020. And so by January of 2020, I told him that I thought he would do better if he moved out on his own. Maybe he felt he was just too trapped being his age and living with mom, and maybe that was making him feel bad also. And so he moved to Arlington in January of 2021. He loved it. I found writings on the first night he was there, and he was so happy. It's the first time he lived alone without roommates, so he really enjoyed it. His brother would stay over there a lot with him. His brother lived in Denton. His brother had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and so they became inseparable, and he was doing really good, but he did like to take the edge off sometimes, and he liked to experiment with certain drugs here and there. I knew that he had used heroin, and so I did a lot of research into it to understand what heroin was and all of that, see how it affected him, how I could best help him, try not to enable, but help him, because he's so charismatic, he's handsome, he's smart, he has all this, and I couldn't understand why he would want to use any kind of hard drug like that.
Waking up in the morning, I gotta plot my defense.
We took a family vacation to South Padre Island for New Year's, going from 2021 to 2022. And one of those days, we all went across the border to Mexico in Progreso, like we always do. There's a couple bars, a couple restaurants. You can buy inexpensive, cool little knickknacks and stuff. I learned later that he had gone into one of the pharmacies and bought some Oxycontin. And I guess those didn't work. They weren't real Oxycontin because you don't have to have a prescription in Mexico to get anything from the pharmacy. And so I think that started the thought. I haven't done these things in a long time, and it got in his head that he wanted to try something again. And so when we got back on January 2nd, and we were all texting on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. And on the 6th, I got a call from his work because I was the emergency contact that he hadn't come into work that day. And my heart just dropped because I knew something terrible had to happen because Matt is so responsible. He just wouldn't not show up for work. And so I called his brother, and he raced down from Denton to pick me up, and we raced over to Arlington from Carrollton. And it was 4:55. We got the master key and the person who worked there, but the doors were locked from the inside with a bolt. And so we went around the back of the house, and his brother punched a window pane in the door. And we raced in, ran through the kitchen, dining room, into the bedroom where he had sat on the bed and just fell backwards. And that's where we found him. And his brother jumped on him first, and his brother knew immediately that he was not alive and pushed me out of the room, but I kept pushing past him, and he finally let me to where I jumped on the bed and tried to do CPR, and as soon as I touched his body, I knew he was gone. And so we just ran into the dining room area and just collapsed in each other's arms, screaming, just the most god-awful screams you can imagine coming from a person, just over and over, until I finally thought we have to call 911. And I was trying, but I couldn't see my phone to get it open through all the tears. And Ryan finally got his phone out and called 911. Ambulance came first, and they came back out and confirmed what we already knew. I mean, we knew. And then the police came, and victim's advocate came. And the EMTs were telling us, I can't remember who got there first, but they were telling us, if you want to go in again, you need to go in before the police get here, because then they'll consider it a crime scene and they're going to make you leave. But I couldn't go in again. There was a peaceful look to him, but there's certain things that will haunt me forever. And I feel guilty that I didn't go put a blanket over, try to warm him up. But I just couldn't. And Ryan couldn't either. I remember every single thing about his hair and his face, but neither of us can remember what t-shirt and shorts he had on. It's weird what the mind does in a trauma situation like that. The medical examiner came in also, and I think she got there before the crime scene people. Like, the police were there, but they had to call a special unit. So she was looking at the pills on the counter. There were a few blue pills on the counter, and she was saying that she had seen where all these blue pills in the area were turning out to be fentanyl and not oxycodone. And so she told us not to touch them, and they were asking us, what did we touch? What did we touch? And the neighbors, I'm sure they heard us screaming, and they just came to our rescue. They took the dog upstairs, they fed the dog, and then they made us come sit up there because we had to stay. And the coroner and the victim's advocate kept coming back and forth to talk to us. I know they would ask questions like, I guess they have to ask these questions, did he want to hurt himself? Do you think that's a possibility? And we're like, no, look in his refrigerator. He just meal prepped for the whole week. He just bought Red Hot Chili Pepper tickets with his friends for September, and we're only in January. And so I stayed in the apartment upstairs with the neighbors when they took Matt out. I couldn't watch them do that. Through his phone, because Ryan knew that his phone code was his old high school ID number. And so I found an old report card. And so I found the person he bought the pills from, where the person lived, what the person's phone number was, all of that. So that's how I knew it had happened the night before, probably about 8 p.m. So the police had his phone first, and they finally called me and said I could come get it, and I could tell they had done nothing. They hadn't even attempted to open it. And then I found out that the DEA does better research, and they were trying to be more involved. And so I called them, and they came out to my house and got the phone and took it and downloaded all the information. And so there is an ongoing case. When I grew up, my generation, you could take a pill, you could experiment, you were not going to die. And it's almost like a rite of passage. Life is hard, and sometimes you want just to have a few drinks or something to take the edge off, because the world is hard. Life is difficult. The economy, 2020. It's not that way anymore. You can't experiment. There is no safe drug anymore. 6 out of every 10 pills confiscated by the DEA has a lethal amount of fentanyl. And it's not fair and it's not right, but you cannot experiment anymore. You can have a few drinks, but if you want to live, you cannot experiment. And don't experiment, because your family will be devastated for the rest of their lives. Every day will be grief, every day will be tears, every day will be the what ifs.